The night of May 6th, 2025, Indian cruise missiles are slamming into PAF airbases at Noor Khan and Bolari. Israeli-made loitering munitions are threading through Pakistani airspace as far as Karachi and Lahore. Pakistan's Air Force wins the aerial duel, taking out multiple Rafales and other aircraft in a beyond visual range engagement that will be studied in military history and academics for decades to come. But missiles are still hitting the bases, and in the aftermath, one uncomfortable question hangs inside the force's command. When India can fire a supersonic cruise missile from hundreds of kilometers away, what can Pakistan fire back with precision, conventionally, without crossing the nuclear threshold? In May 2025, the answer was the Fatah I. It did its job, but the gaps were visible. 3 months later, Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif stood up on Independence Day, 14th of August 2025, and announced the Army Rocket Force Command, the ARFC. We covered that moment on this program. Today, 10 months on, the ARFC is no longer an announcement. It is a functioning command with confirmed operational missiles, new weapons in the pipeline, and a command and control architecture wired into Pakistan's satellites, drones, and Air Force as part of a multi-domain warfare strategy. What does the ARFC actually look like now? What is in its arsenal? Where is it going? And does Pakistan have the budget and the decision-making infrastructure to match its ambition? I'm Qasim. This is Radar Mode. Let's get into it. This episode is the sequel to our earlier coverage of the ARFC foreign mission. If you watch that one, you'll see just how much has changed in the span of just 10 months. If you haven't, no problem, we'll give you everything you need. Today we'll talk about 4 sections: the structure, the arsenal, how it plugs into multi-domain warfare, and where does the ARFC headed next. But before we get into that, let's get 3 essential terms straight, because they come up constantly and they're not interchangeable. 3 terms you need to know. Firstly, a conventional missile. A conventional missile simply means any missile carrying a standard explosive warhead. Not nuclear, not chemical, just a precision-guided bomb at the end of a missile. When the rocket force is described as a conventional command, that means one thing: no nuclear role, full stop. A ballistic missile is fired upward on a rocket motor, arcs through the upper atmosphere, that is really high up into the atmosphere. Think of a cricket ball thrown hard over a long distance and falls onto its target. It is very fast, it has long range, and the arc makes it very hard to intercept at altitude. The Fatah II family sits in this range. And then we come to the cruise missile. A cruise missile does not operate exactly like a ballistic missile. A cruise missile fires horizontally, like a small, tiny, unmanned aircraft, flying really close to the terrain, staying low to avoid radar detection. It is much slower than a ballistic missile, but far harder to spot, precisely because it never rises above the radar horizon. The Fatah IV is a cruise missile family, flying at about 50 meters altitude. Sometimes they call it train hugging or sea skimming missile. And of course, it goes up to 750 kilometers. India's BrahMos is also a cruise missile, just a supersonic one, which means it's just that much faster. Why does Pakistan need both? Because they force the enemy to solve 2 completely different interception problems at the same time. You cannot defeat a high-arcing ballistic missile and a terrain-hugging cruise missile with the same system. That layering is the whole point. Keep these terms in mind: conventional, ballistic, cruise, and everything that follows will land much more clearly. For decades, Pakistan's conventional strike forces were fragmented. Guided rockets that sat with the artillery corps, cruise missiles that sat with the army, some with the air force. Nuclear delivery platforms were managed separately under the Strategic Plans Division. No single command owned the complete spectrum of conventional long-range precision strike. In a fast-moving, compressed conflict, the kind May 2025 turned out to be, that fragmentation costs you. It slows decisions, it creates coordination gaps, and it leaves no one commander responsible for the complete precision strike picture. The Army Rocket Force Command was built to fix exactly that. Announced on August 13th, 2025, in Islamabad, a day before Pakistan's 78th Independence Day. It consolidates conventional rockets and missiles from several formations and specialist detachments into a single operational command. Its mandate is clear: unify, modernize, and operate. Pakistan's conventional strike capability: deep strikes, precision hits without touching the nuclear trigger. The command sits under the Pakistan Army, reporting to General Headquarters at Chiklala. It is led by a Lieutenant General, a 3-star, placing it at the same institutional weight as a Corps Commander. The structural inspiration is China's People's Liberation Army Rocket Force, built on centralized control, mobile launchers, dispersed basing, and layered strike ranges. One command, multiple ranges, units that are hard to locate and harder to preempt. The separation from nuclear command is deliberate strategic signaling, not just an organizational choice. India and the international community have historically read every Pakistani missile development through the nuclear lens. The ARFC is Pakistan's answer to that, a ring-fenced conventional command that can respond to conventional aggression without that response being misread as nuclear escalation. In a conflict between two nuclear-armed states, that clarity is not bureaucratic housekeeping. It is crisis stability mechanisms. I once had the privilege of witnessing a joint Pakistan Army and Air Force exercise near Jhelum. There were infantry units deployed, tanks were deployed, which were rolling across the terrain. Artillery was firing from behind us. Of course, the artillery units are way behind us. We're at the command station at the top of a hill, and the battle space is in front of us, and we can hear the artillery shells above us because they're being fired a few kilometers behind us, and they're plummeting onto the battlefield. Because it was a joint Air Force and Army exercise, we also had F-7PGs flying overhead and striking with extreme precision using their guns. It was insane how precisely they were targeting the targets that were on the ground from flying above. It was insane. So at the same time, we have units of infantry moving forward, tanks in position, they're thundering along, artillery is being fired above overhead, F-7PGs are strafing the ground. So the whole coordinated firepower on display was really overwhelming. So I've seen artillery units firing, I've seen tanks firing, that is quite usual. But in that exercise, nothing could have prepared me for the moment the MLRS, the multiple launch rocket system, opened fire. The ground beneath my feet trembled, the sky split open with this whistling shriek of rockets being fired in rapid succession. And then came the impact. The far end of the battlefield simply just disappeared. Not in one explosion, but in a wall of fire and earth that swallowed everything in its path. Where there was once terrain, there was now only smoke, dust, and ruin. That day gave me a visceral understanding of what long-range rocket systems like the MLRS and the Fatah I bring to the modern battlefield. Not merely as weapons, but as instruments of strategic dominance. Now, these were probably 122mm rockets being fired. And of course, Pakistan Army is right now operating 300mm rockets, and the Fatah I and the Fatah II are even bigger than that. But the sheer devastation they cause on the active battlefield is so disorienting. It is truly something else. The Fatah I is where it all started. A guided multiple launch rocket system with a 140 kilometers range, GPS and inertial guidance, and accuracy tight enough to hit a runway. 8 rockets per launcher, mobile, combat used in May 2025, and detrimental in bringing their belligerent neighbor to a ceasefire. It remains the ARFC's high-volume, close-range saturation tool, the workhorse that proved the concept in actual conflict. Next up in the ARFC arsenal is the Fatah II. Operational on April 28, 2026, the ARFC carried out a training launch of the Fatah II. The word training is the signal. This was not a developmental test to see if the missile works. Soldiers were being drilled on a system already in service. The Fatah II is an indigenously developed multiple launch rocket system with a range of 400 kilometers, a 365 kg warhead, and an accuracy of under 50 meters. It executes evasive maneuvers in mid-flight, making it very hard to intercept than a standard ballistic arc. 2 missiles for every mobile warhead launcher, designed to fire and move before a counter-strike can locate the position. At 400 kilometers, it can reach deep into Indian territory from Pakistani soil, with the precision to destroy a specific building, radar installation, or airbase. That's a really tight tool in the arsenal. Next up is Fatah IV, the 750 kilometers train hugger, also operational, very hard to detect, low flying, and deep penetration into Indian territory. The Fatah IV was ARFC's first confirmed operational missile, tested on September 30th, 2025, just weeks after the command's formation, and confirmed in service again with a training launch on May 14th, 2026. Derived from the Babar cruise missile lineage, it flies really low, just 50 meters off the ground, across a 750 kilometers range with a claimed accuracy of about 5 meters and a 330 kilograms warhead. 750 kilometers at treetop height with 5-meter precision. That is a strategic conventional strike capability. It can reach virtually any significant military installation in India from Pakistani territory. A separate test fired the Fatah IV against an inflatable decoy of a gravestone radar, the targeting component of the India's S-400 defense system. Using a new infrared terminal seeker that homes in on the radar's heat signature near direct hit. Pakistan is not just building missiles, it is building missiles designed to defeat specific Indian threats. The Fatah III, the supersonic wildcard. In May 2026, ISPR revealed the Fatah III, a ramjet-powered supersonic cruise missile sustaining flight between Mach 2.2 and 3.5 that puts it in the same speed class as the Indian BrahMos. No confirmed test firing yet. This is likely a signal of developmental progress as much as operational readiness. And it bears resemblance to China's HT-1 ramjet platform. Whether it enters full service in 2026 or 27, its existence forces India to plan against a supersonic conventional ground strike, not just from the PAF, but also the Army's own rocket force. The Fatah V, the 1,000-kilometer question. Defense Security Asia reported in April 2026 that a Fatah V is in development with a projected range of 1,000 kilometers, a figure that, if confirmed, would represent a step change in the ARFC's strategic depth. No official Pakistani statement has confirmed this designation or range, treated as a credible analytical assessment rather than confirmed fact, but one worth watching. If the Fatah family is indeed extending towards 1,000 kilometers of conventional reach, the ARFC's portfolio will cover virtually the entire Indian strategic interior. At the World Defense Show in 2026, GIDS exhibited the Smash, an anti-ship ballistic missile derived from the Fatah II with a 290 kilometers range for targeting naval vessels. The same missile engineering that gave the ARFC its 400 kilometers land strike capability now feeds Pakistan's maritime domain. Viewers who watched our Sea Sultan episode last time will recognize this logic. Pakistan is building a layered sea denial alongside land strike, using the same indigenous platform base. Multi-domain warfare is one of those phrases that can mean everything or nothing. In Pakistan's specific context, it means a single shared intelligence and surveillance infrastructure, accessible by all three services, Navy, Air Force, and the Army. That enables each service to strike more effectively than it could be doing operating alone. The Pakistan satellites feed the Army's missiles. The Army's missiles suppress enemy air defenses. That suppression creates openings for the PAF jets. The Navy watches the maritime domain while the Air Force controls inland. Not three separate wars running in parallel. One war fought simultaneously across every domain. Lieutenant General Noman Zakaria described it precisely at the Shangri-La Dialogue last week as the integrated use of cyber and electronic warfare, ISR, space-based capabilities, and synchronized maneuver-generating cross-domain effects. The ARFC is one of the central instruments of that doctrine. The horizontal layer, Pakistan's three services are vertical silos, each with its own chain of command, doctrine, and weapons. What Pakistan is now building on top of these three vertical silos is a horizontal layer of command that cuts across all three, controlled at the top under the Chief of Defense Forces. The ARFC is one horizontal command. Space Command, stewarded by the PAF, is another. A drone force is reportedly in development as a third. The horizontal layer means the ARFC fires when the joint system says fire, based on shared intelligence, not when an army commander decides to act independently. For the ARFC missiles to be effective, they need precise targeting. A Fatah II with 50 meters accuracy is only as lethal as the quality of data feeding it. Pakistan operates the PRSC electro-optical satellite series and the HS-1 radar imaging satellite, developed with China's PISAT, a radar satellite that sees through cloud cover, day and night, and can track mobile targets in near real time. The Rocket Force Command taps Space Command's network for targeting. Satellite identifies the target, Space Command validates, and the ARFC receives coordinates and mobile launchers fire. Impact in under 3 minutes. The whole sensor to shooter cycle is engineered to be faster than an adversary's ability to move, reinforce, or preempt. Pakistan is investing a further $406 million with PISAT to grow the number of satellites in our constellation to 20 radar imaging satellites. More satellites mean shorter revisit times, which means more strike windows opened more frequently and more often. The commander of the Rocket Force has been direct about the force's operating vision for the future conflict. Responses measured in seconds, not minutes. The logic is straightforward. Modern battlefields move faster than any previous generation of warfare. Targets are mobile, windows close. By the time a traditional strike package is assembled, briefed, and airborne, the target has moved on. The ARFC is being built to compress that entire cycle, from detection to impact, into a timeline that denies the adversary any meaningful reaction time. That requires real-time sensor networks, automated command and control loops, and integrated battlefield intelligence feeding directly to the mobile launchers already dispersed and ready. The near-term trajectory of the Rocket Force Command involves two parallel tracks. The first is a salvo fire capability, the ability to launch multiple precision missiles simultaneously at a single target set, overwhelming any individual air defense battery through sheer volume. Modern air defense systems have finite reload times and limited simultaneous engagement capacity. A coordinated salvo from the ARFC, Fatah II and Fatah IV launchers, both operational, is designed to saturate the area rather than challenge those defenses. The second track is hypersonic technology. Beyond the supersonic Fatah III, Pakistan's military is exploring missiles that fly above Mach 5, fast enough that current interception systems have virtually no meaningful response window. The ARFC is the command that would eventually field and operate such systems, and the institutional framework and groundwork is being done right now. Now for the difficult conversation, because an honest assessment of the ARFC future has to include this. A dedicated Rocket Force Command is not cheap. Infrastructure, communication networks, hardened command facilities, satellite integration, base systems, recruitment, training, logistics. Analysts at the Small War Journal have estimated this amounts to a multi-billion-dollar commitment over time. Pakistan's defense budget, while growing, remains constrained relative to the scale of transformation being attempted. The risk is a command that has the doctrine and the ambition but not the sustained funding to build out its full architecture. Some analysts describe the ARFC as a strategic leap. Others call it a burdened gamble. The truth probably lies somewhere in the middle, depending entirely on whether Pakistan's national security establishment treats this as a generational-long institutional investment rather than a headline announcement. There is one more dimension that serious analysts are raising, and we should address it honestly. The ARFC's fast response design compresses the space between conventional action and escalation. A missile command with launchers already dispersed and loaded, capable of striking in minutes, shrinks the diplomatic buffer that slower strike systems naturally provide. An Air Force strike takes hours to assemble, hours during which a ceasefire can be called or a decision to stand down can be made. The ARFC's response window is minutes. Pakistan would correctly note that India has the same capability with its integrated battle groups and missile forces. Both sides are accelerating, but having a missile ready in 3 minutes is one thing. Having a command system that makes the right call in these 3 minutes and lives with the consequences is the harder problem. The ARFC's hardware is moving fast. The decision architecture needs to keep pace. As for its future, we are all looking forward to 14th of August this year. We're hearing some big announcements coming in terms of the rocket forces, so I'll be looking forward to it, just like all of you. When we covered the rocket forces formation last August, it was a declaration born from the lessons of a 4-day conflict that exposed real gaps in Pakistan's conventional strike capability. 10 months down the line, 2 missile systems are confirmed operational, a supersonic variant has been revealed, a naval derivative is on the international exhibition floor, and a 1,000-kilometer system is reportedly in development. The command that was announced as an intent now has some sharp teeth. But the most important story is the architecture. The rocket force is not a standalone rocket force. It is one node in a networked system spanning satellites, drones, fighter aircraft, and even naval assets. All drawing from a shared intelligence layer, all coordinated under a unified command chain. Multi-domain warfare is no longer just a presentation slide in Pakistan's military planning. It is being built system by system, command by command, all together at the moment. The challenges are real. Budget constraints, decision speed pressures, the risk that hardware outpaces institutional readiness. Pakistan has spent decades being told its conventional forces cannot match India's mass and depth. The rocket force is the clearest signal that Pakistan has stopped trying to match that mass and instead is betting on precision, speed, and reach. Whether that bet pays off depends on the next decade of sustained investment and on the steadiness of the hand that holds these weapons when the next crisis comes. As we look ahead, all eyes are on the 14th of August 2026, a date that promises to be a landmark moment in the rocket force's history. Big announcements are on the horizon and anticipation is at an all-time high. Stay tuned because the next chapter in the story of the rocket force is about to begin. That is it for this week's Radar Mode. If this episode was useful, and I hope it was, please like the video, subscribe to Pakistan Connect, and share it with someone who should be watching. 30 seconds of your time genuinely keeps the show running. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Does Pakistan's conventional missile ambition make you confident, or does it concern you? I read every comment and I want to hear where you stand. My name is Qasim. Stay sharp, stay informed, and I'll see you again next week.